Hey legends, I hope you had a cracking weekend of footy. For me, it was unfortunately not too great. I had both Fogarty and Kalen Ponga, and to make it just that little bit worse, I actually captained Fogarty as well. So it was a really painful weekend. So let's just get into it, rip that band-aid off, and let's walk through some of those results. Okay, first up, let's have a quick look at how we scored this week. Unfortunately, it was our worst score of the year so far by 1 point. 672. You can see here we got 673 in round 4. And from there, we were doing well. We were headed in the right direction. And we were hoping that round 7, we went into the weekend with, so much enthusiasm, hoping that it was going to be a massive weekend. And unfortunately, we captained Fogarty. That was atrocious. And Kalen Ponga, yes, we know he went into the round injured, but to walk away with a foot injury, well, that was both unpredictable and pretty devastating from a fantasy point of view, but also for those two players. They're awesome people. They're both amazing on the field, and I'm sure we all agree we wish them a speedy recovery. At the end of the day, it's only fantasy, it's a little bit of fun. But for Fogs, he's now out for 3 months, has a torn bicep. That can't be good, even from just the pain point of view. Must be absolutely atrocious. And Kalen Ponga, what can I say? The guy knows how to pick up an injury. If it wasn't bad enough, he had that hip flexor issue last weekend. It now looks like he's out for upwards of 3 months with a foot injury. So just absolutely devastating for both of those players. Absolutely devastating for my fantasy team. But the real question from here is, can we recover? Now, what I've done here is I've put the points if just Fogarty was to get his average score, and then Ponga was to do the same. So obviously we captain Fogs. So you can see with both of those players, we would have ended up, I reckon, somewhere around the 780 to 790 mark. Because unfortunately, they weren't the only issues with the team this week, and a whole bunch of players actually really underperformed. And you've got a problem when Sam Hughes, I think, was your third best scorer in your team. So we'll go through that in a second. But one thing I am not liking is this continued downward trajectory. We better make some moves. We better change that really quickly, because we've just slipped over that 35,000 mark, and I'm not a big fan of heading in that direction, so we need to make some big moves this week and get our team back on track. Okay, so let's just go over to some of the changes that we made this week in round 7, and I'm pretty happy, generally speaking, with some of the trades that we made. So we brought in Kai Pearce-Paul, Angus Crichton, and Corey Waddell, and we traded out Cam Murray, Drew Hutchison, and Danny Levi. Now, Kai Pearce-Paul delivered 56 and made us some cash. Angus Crichton did the same, 46 points, which is decent, not amazing, but these are kind of the points that we were expecting this week. I actually think when we did that trade-in video, we were talking about Kai Pearce-Paul being mid-50s and Angus Crichton about mid-40s, and Corey Waddell sitting somewhere around that 40 mark. So they kind of did what we expected them to do, which is great. Cam Murray, now he was obviously out on the bye, didn't play. Drew Hutchison lost a little bit of cash, down 11k. And Danny Levi continues to deliver a relatively stable, consistent number there, and achieved a $1,000 cash growth, which is good for him. Let's jump over to the actual team now, and we'll break down just where it all went kind of wrong for us this week. Okay, so here is the team, and you can see a whole bunch of players really underperforming. So let's start up on top. Harry Grant, he's down around kind of 10 points, which is really painful. We expect Harry to be at least a 50-point player, with the occasional game that kind of nudges into the mid-60s and potentially a 70s if he has a cracker. So it's been a little bit frustrating with hookers this year, and we'll talk about Joey Lussick in a minute. He's another one that's really starting to give us a whole heap of frustration. So next up, Ruben Cotter, 46, again disappointing. We expect at least a 50, or at least greater than a 50 from Ruben Cotter. So to see 46, it would ordinarily put him on the chopping block. But fortunately for him, I've got some bigger issues. Now, Terrell May, 32, just disgraceful. I think the bench rotation of Trent Robinson at the Roosters is just madness at the moment. You take off one of your most lethal weapons, and what happened? Melbourne went on to win the game. So, don't be surprised if you're pulling off players that are of the caliber of Terrell May and you don't win. So really frustrating there. Now, Corey Waddell, I'm pretty happy with that 45. Look, he is only 466k. Made us a little bit of money this week, so I'm pretty happy with that. So we managed to pick him up at a bit of a bargain, and he does have this mid-edge dual, which will make him very handy down the track. Kai Pearce-Paul, really happy with that 56, and Angus Crichton, a decent 46 that we're pretty happy with. Next up, Jamal Fogarty, and the one that hurts the most is 40 as captain, so he actually only scored 20 points. And I think, to be honest, this was the biggest pain point of the weekend. So going forward, we're really going to have to be very selective on our captaincy choice, because I think we can't afford another 20-point score or really underperforming score from our captain. So it's really important that we get somebody who is absolutely rock solid. But I very much doubt anyone, or certainly many people, would have predicted a bicep injury to Fogarty. Galvin, 35, not bad, a little bit down. But keep in mind, look, he is in his rookie year and he's only 451k. So he does play the support act longer term in this team. So we've got to be conscious of that. Iro, pretty decent, 37. I'm okay with that. It would have been nicer to get somewhere 40 plus. That would have been absolutely ideal. But 37, I'll take it. Ethan Strange, 35, same sort of thing as Iro. We're really after that 40 plus. But again, between Galvin, Iro, Strange, these guys are all rookies. So we've got to be prepared to expect some of these up and down games from players who are essentially playing their first full year of NRL. Which brings me down to Pappenhausen, 31 points in a team that actually went on to win the game is incredibly disappointing. 2024 Pappenhausen isn't the Pappenhausen of old, that's for sure. He's not kicking. It's starting to be a little bit of a concern. He is on our watch list. For me, it's unlikely that he'll play State of Origin, and he's definitely one to keep on the radar, that's for sure. Turbo, 50 is not bad, but again, it's not great. And in a game where he should have absolutely dominated, he's only scoring, I think, what we'd expect his base to be. So that's another little bit of a watch out. Kalen Ponga, devastating with this 21. And between Kalen Ponga and Jamal Fogarty, I think these were the two players that really hurt us the most. But as you can see, pretty much across the board, we're looking at, -5 or -10 from some of our superstar players that we would expect to have done a little bit better. But at the end of the day, it was just the wrong captaincy choice. That's really cost us somewhere around the, upwards of 100 points this week, which is really, really painful. Now let's have a look at the bench. Joey Lussick is really starting to give me the poops. 28, he is like a yo-yo, 1 week up, really going well. And the next week, just these absolutely atrocious scores. And it's really not what we're looking for from a top tier hooker. And I think if I didn't have bigger problems this week, he and Ruben Cotto would probably be the two on the chopping block. But unfortunately, obviously, because Fogarty is out and Ponga is out, we may have to look elsewhere. Now, Finny Filiaki, I reckon, delivered a pretty decent score for him. 41 is not too bad. Again, we'd like a little bit more, but one thing about this score is he does start to make us a little bit more money, which is exactly what we want. We want to continue to extract every single dollar out of him before we move on. Now, there's talk that Lukey is back maybe next week or the week after, so Team List Tuesday will clarify all of that for us, because he may be a candidate that we have to move on this week. Next up, we've got a couple of guys who are out on the bye in round 8 in Salmon. Pretty decent for his 40. He's starting to be a handy little bench kind of emergency player that may end up sticking around for a bit longer. He's got the edge mid dual, and for me, I think, covering bye rounds, that will be incredibly important. A decent one from Sam Hughes, 46. He really starts to make us some decent money now. I think he's made around about the 65, 70k in the last 2 weeks alone. So a little bit more of that is amazing. And I'll be using Salmon or Hughes as one of our loopers this weekend. Jesse Arthurs, well, he continues to underperform from a fantasy point of view with this 33 points. We will be looking to move on as soon as I can figure out who do we move on to. Now, we've got players like KO Weeks. Trey Fuller at the Dolphins had an absolute blinder. So we've got a few options there that we can have a look at. But I reckon, again, because we've got problems elsewhere this week, he may just continue for a little bit longer in this side. Nathan Cleary, we are desperate to have Cleary back, and obviously he will come straight into this team. Burbo, we've got some decisions to make on him. He's not costing us money. He may only be 2 more weeks away, so we just have to keep an eye on that. Piakura, he looks like he's going to be back in round 8, which is great. The big question is, are the Broncos going to nurse him back into this team, which means he gets less minutes than he ordinarily would? And even if he's in the team and he plays 80 minutes, what sort of points is he actually going to get? Is he going to be any better than Angus Crichton, Finny Fuiaki, Corey Waddell? You know, really keen to understand what sort of points he is going to deliver for us. Okay, so in terms of trades that we are looking at this week, and I'm just going to rub out some of this stuff that we put on screen here, so bear with me a second. Okay, so one of the lessons that I've probably learnt over the last few weeks is holding Nathan Cleary for as long as I did was very bad. In fact, I should have upgraded to maybe a Nico Hines, maybe a Sean Johnson a lot earlier, and really played for those points, because as you can see here, there's always opportunities that pop up to trade players out. Some of them obviously are very unexpected, like this Fogarty Ponga thing. So going into next season, 2025, I don't think I'll be as nice when it comes to holding on to players who are injured. So we've carried Cleary, we've carried Piakura, and we're talking, you know, $1.2, $1.3 million there that we could have invested elsewhere to really grow the team over the last 4 weeks. So something to consider for the future for sure. Now, in terms of actual trade-in targets, we are looking at Fogarty for Nico Hines. I think that just makes sense. We've got a couple of options to consider for Ponga. We could go Reece Walsh, or we could go down. We could actually go to someone like a KO Weeks, who I think is likely to come in for Fogarty down there at the Raiders. We could go Trey Fuller at the Dolphins. I think he has some potential, and he showed on the weekend that he really is a decent player. So there could be some, 45, 50 point scores in him, which would be amazing. I'm a little bit unsure what KO Weeks is going to deliver. So, Reece Walsh, while he could deliver 60s, he could also come out and deliver 30s as well. So that's a little bit of an unknown. KO Weeks is completely unknown. And Trey Fuller, well, if we could get, greater than 40 on a regular and consistent basis, he will make some decent coin. And we also need to think about bye coverage, because the Raiders will play the bye, the Dolphins will play the bye, but the Broncos won't. So that's something that we have to be considering when we punt Kalen Ponga, Fogarty, and maybe one other. So if we have a look at who else in this team that we would give the punt this week, players up for consideration would be Joey Lussick, potentially Jesse Arthurs, and I think I'd also consider Burbo. So that gives me potentially 5 trade out targets between Kalen Ponga, Fogs, Lussick, Arthurs, and Burbo. And I think with the amount of money tied up just in Fogarty and Ponga, we could pretty much get any player that we wanted. So we've got some thinking to do. We could even consider a Yo up here for Cotter if we wanted to target Cotter this week. There's not really any better options for Harry Grant. I think May will give him another opportunity. Waddell is fine. Crichton is fine. Kai Pearce-Paul is fine. Lockie Galvin is fine. Ethan Strange, Iro, all fine. Turbo is fine. Paps is probably fine, but starting to concern me a little bit. These 3 guys over here on the bench, well, they're all still making us some money, so they'll stay a little bit longer. And Piakura and Cleary, well, we've held them this long, so, I'm hoping like hell that they are back this week. So there you go, guys. Look, a pretty disappointing one for me this week. I hope your round 7 was a whole lot better than mine. Captaincy choice will be very, very important, I think, going over the next few rounds. So it's very important we get that one right. Fingers crossed we get Nathan Cleary back. We get Piakura back in Team List Tuesday. And we've got some big decisions to make on who we trade out and who we bring in. So there you go. Thanks for watching, guys. If you've liked today's video, you know what to do. Smash that like button for me. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, and as always, guys, get involved in the conversation via the comment section down below, and I'll see you all in the next video.